The second cause for the demise of the existing world order is the occupation of the Palestinian territories. The oppressed people of Palestine have lived under the rule of an occupying regime for 60 years, been deprived of freedom, security, and the right to self-determination, while the occupiers are given recognition. On a daily basis, the houses are being destroyed over the heads of innocent women and children. People are deprived of water, food, and medicine in their own homeland. The Zionists have imposed 5 all-out wars on their neighboring countries and on the Palestinian people. The Zionists committed the most horrible crimes against the defenseless people in the wars against Lebanon and Gaza. The Zionist regime attacked a humanitarian flotilla in a blatant defiance of all international norms and kills civilians. This regime, which enjoys the absolute support of some Western countries, regularly threatens the countries in the region and continues publicly to announce the assassination of Palestinian figures, while Palestinian defenders and those opposing this regime are pressured, labeled as terrorists, and called anti-Semites. All values, even that of the freedom of expression, which in Europe and the United States seem to matter so much and are so important, have been sacrificed at the altar of Zionism. Solutions are doomed to fail because the right of the Palestinian people is not taken into account. Would we have witnessed such horrendous crimes if instead of recognizing the occupation, the sovereign right of the Palestinian people had been recognized? Our unambiguous proposition is the return of the Palestinian refugees to their homeland and the reference to the vote of the people of Palestine, all Palestinians, to exercise their sovereignty and decide on the type of government. The third cause for the demise of the existing order has to do with the outlook on nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is clean and cheap and a heavenly gift, which is amongst the most suitable alternatives to cut pollutions emanating from fossil fuels. The Non-Proliferation Treaty allows all member states to use nuclear energy without limit, and the International Atomic Energy Agency is mandated to provide member states with technical and legal support. The nuclear bomb is the worst inhumane weapon and one which must totally be eliminated. The NPT prohibits its development and stockpiling and calls for nuclear disarmament. Nonetheless, please note that some of the permanent members of the Security Council and nuclear powers, i.e. those who hold the nuclear bomb, have resorted to a measure. They have equated nuclear energy with the nuclear bomb and have distanced this energy from the reach of most nations by establishing monopolies and pressuring the IAEA, while at the same time they have continued to maintain, expand, and upgrade their own nuclear arsenals. You may have heard that in the current year, the United States administration has asked for $80 billion to upkeep its nuclear bombs alone. This has entailed the following. Not only the nuclear disarmament has not been realized, but also nuclear bombs have been proliferated in some regions, including by the occupying and intimidating Zionist regime. I would like here to propose that the year 2011 be proclaimed the year of nuclear disarmament and nuclear energy for all, nuclear weapons for none. In all these cases, of course, I admit that the United Nations has been unable to take any effective course of action that has been viable or meaningfully viable. Unfortunately, in the decade proclaimed by it as the International Decade for the Culture of Peace, for example, hundreds of thousands were killed and injured as a result of war, aggression and occupation, and hostilities and antagonism having increased. Ladies and gentlemen, very recently the world witnessed an abhorrent an inhumane act of burning the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran is the divine book and the eternal miracle of the Prophet of Islam. It calls for worshipping the one God, justice, compassion toward people, development and progress, reflection and thought, defense of the oppressed and resistance against oppressors, and it names with respect the previous messengers of God, like Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Joseph, Moses, and Jesus Christ, may peace be upon all the prophets, and endorses them. They burned the Quran to burn all these truths and good judgments. However, the truth cannot be burned. Quran is eternal, because God and truth are everlasting. This act, and any other act which widens the gap and distances between nations, is evil. We must wisely avoid playing into the hands of Satan. On behalf of the Iranian nation, I pay respect to all divine books and their followers. This is the Quran, and this is the Bible. We pay respect to both books, as both are dear to us. Dear friends, esteemed friends, for years, the inefficiency of capitalism and the existing world management structures have been exposed enough for us to understand what they mean. And the majority of states and people have begun a quest for fundamental changes and for allow justice in global relations to prevail. The cause for the United Nations ineptitude is its unjust structure. Major powers have monopolized the Security Council due to their veto privilege and sidelined the General Assembly, which is the main pillar of the organization. In the past several decades, at least one of the permanent members of the Security Council has always been a party to a conflict. When both the judge and the defender or prosecutor and the defender are on the same side of the conflict, how can you expect justice? They feel immune as a result of the aggressions due to the structure of the United Nations. For example, if Iran enjoyed the veto privilege, would the Security Council and the IAEA Director General have taken the same position on its nuclear issue as they have today? Dear friends, the United Nations is the key center for coordinating common global management. Its structure needs to be reformed in a manner that all independent states and nations are able to participate in the global governance and actively and constructively. The veto privilege should be revoked, and the General Assembly should be the highest body, and the Secretary General should be the most independent official, and all his positions and activities should be taken with approval of the General Assembly and should be directed towards promoting justice and eliminating discrimination in the world order. The Secretary General should not come under pressure from powers and/or the country hosting the organization, that is the United Nations, for stating the truth and administering justice. It is proposed that the General Assembly hold within a year and in the framework of an extraordinary session finalize the reformation of this body's structure, the United Nations structure, that is. The Islamic Republic of Iran has clear proposals in this regard and suggestions and stands ready to participate actively and constructively in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, I announce clearly that the occupation of other countries under the pretext of freedom and democracy is an unforgivable crime. The world needs the logic of compassion and justice and inclusive participation instead of the logic of force, domination, unilateralism, war, and humiliation. The world needs to be governed by virtuous people like the divine profits. The two vast geographical spheres, namely Africa and Latin America, have gone through historic developments during the past decade that have altered their fates. The new approaches in these two continents, which are based on increasing level of integration and unity, as well as on localizing the growth and development models, have borne considerable fruit to the people of those regions. The awareness and wisdom of the leaders of these two continents has overcome the regional problems and crises without and free of the domineering interference of non-regional powers. The Islamic Republic of Iran has expanded its relations with Latin America and Africa in all aspects in recent years. And about the glorious Iran. The Tehran Declaration was a hugely constructive step in confidence-building efforts, which was made possible through the admirable goodwill by the governments of Brazil and Turkey, along with the close and sincere and honest cooperation of the Iranian government. Although the declaration received inappropriate reactions by some Western powers, and was followed by an unlawful resolution, it still holds valid. We have observed the regulations of the IAEA more than our commitments, yet we have never submitted to illegally impose pressures, nor will we ever do so. It has been said that they seek to pressure Iran into a dialogue. Well, firstly, Iran has always been ready for a dialogue based on respect and justice. Secondly, the methods based on disrespecting nations have long become ineffective. Those who have used intimidation and sanctions in response to the clear logic of the Iranian nation are in real terms destroying the remaining credibility of the Security Council and the trust of nations for this body, proving once and again how unjust is the function of the Council. When they threaten a great nation, a great people such as Iran, which is known throughout history for its scientists, poets, artists, and philosophers, and whose culture and civilization is synonymous to purity, submission to God, and seeking justice, how can they ever expect that other nations have confidence in them? My friends, it goes without saying that domineering methods in managing the world, and namely capitalism, have failed. Not only has the era of slavery and colonialism and domineering the world passed, the path to the revival of old empires are now blocked as well. We have announced that we stand ready for a serious and free debate with the American statesmen to express our transparent views on issues of importance to the world in this very venue. It is proposed right here that in order to have a constructive dialogue, an annual free debate be organized within the General Assembly.